And we talked about how the church could. I didn't know it was being done.
Hang on in, this is long because I've got to explain what it's about before I get to the point, because a lot of my followers won't know because we're in the UK. This is in America, where they don't really have much of a social welfare programme, and a woman did a social experiment when she played the tape of a crying young baby, phoned up lots of churches and all the rest of it and said, look, my baby is really hungry, we've got no money, we've got no formula, can you help? Most of the churches said, no, we can't help. And I think 2 black churches said yes, but this gentleman, this elderly gentleman, who's the pastor of a small church, picked up his car keys, said what brand was going to come out, and a mosque said yes. Now, then, because of the fact that he was immediately picked up his keys, he was going to buy that baby formula. His church has received donations of about £100,000, and he is desperate to go and spend that in the community to help his flock. And the mosque said yes, because mosques will, if you know anything about them, it's one of their big pillars of Islam is charity. So yeah, the mosque was going to help. I mean, absolutely, they were going to help. So that's where you are. What I think is really interesting is it desperately highlights the difference between a country with a social welfare programme, a good one like the UK, and we're nothing like we used to be, where you wouldn't go begging for charity for milk. You would go to your doctor or your GP, you would go to the hospital, or you would go to a food bank where they have to, they will help with things like that. Whereas charity, private charity, basically relies on somebody else thinking that you're good enough to have it. One of the churches said, we only give it to our congregation, which effectively is they're supposed to give him 10% of their income. You know what I mean? It's all a bit. And the reason I'm highlighting this is you often hear people in this country trying to cut down our benefits and our social welfare with the idea that they shouldn't be forced to pay for other people out of their taxes. Although I think most of the people that say that are people that actually don't pay that much tax in the first place, but we'll buy that. And this is why, because when you rely on private charity, as we did when the Victorians were around, you rely on, they can split people into the deserving poor and the non-deserving poor. And then you can say that some people, by their behaviour and their general aspect, are more worthy of help than others, forgetting that at the root of this was a 2-month-old baby. And a lot of these private churches were happy to let a 2-month-old baby starve to death. So whenever you knock the UK welfare system and all the rest of it and think that it should be private charity or insurance funded, please remember when that system is in place, lots of people who profess to be kind and loving will let a child starve to death out of principle.